debts or say goodbye. All Wolfowitz is here. He'll lead us to freedom, and we will be so glad, just like those shoppers in that market in downtown Baghdad. Last week he was bombing cities, now he's a financier. Pay your debts or say goodbye, Paul Wolfowitz is here.
You know, 100 years ago, there would be debt repayment crises in places like Venezuela and so on. And the U.S. and Germany and France would send in gunboats to collect the debt. So this is, in a way, it's a very old story. Now it's the IMF and the World Bank. We don't need the gunboats or the troops. You send in the IMF and the World Bank to collect the debt.
Mr. Wolfowitz, welcome to Guatemala.
Very nice to
It's
meet you.
an honor to meet you.
My honor.
I mean, there's no mafia on earth that has leverage like that.
We looked at Saudi Arabia as our biggest success as economic hitmen, and probably the one that, in the long run, has had the most impact on world history for a long time.
The king sees the oil development as the greatest single means to modernize his country and improve the living standards of his people. The Navy has said that Saudi Arabian oil is one of its most important strategic sources of supply.
Back in the 70s, we were facing this oil crisis. OPEC had decided to basically hold us hostage to them. And the Treasury Department came to me and other economic hitmen and said, you know, we can't allow this to happen anymore. We can't be blackmailed by OPEC. You guys have to figure out a way to stop this. And we knew that the key to any such solution lay with Saudi Arabia, because we knew that the House of Saud was corruptible and Saudi Arabia had more oil than anybody else in the world. And so we worked out this deal with Saudi Arabia, whereby the House of Saud would guarantee that the price of oil would stay within limits reasonable to us, and we'd guarantee that the House of Saud would stay in power.
So what we agreed to do was not investigate Saudi Arabia, not condemn it, not look into it if it would pump oil. It was a gentleman's agreement. You will not find a piece of paper. But it was always understood.
Now, in the case of Saudi Arabia, in the long run, there was what we call blowback. It's a CIA term. It means that a policy that you think has worked to your advantage ultimately blows back in your face.
If 15 of the suicide bombers on 9/11 were Saudis, right? How many Saudis have been indicted, have gone to jail for 9/11? None.
يا بني فإن شرعة ربنا بجهاد أبناء العقيدة تنتصر. لن ينصر الإسلام أن تبقى هنا. لن ينصر الإسلام أن تبقى هنا.
There's so much resentment, there's so much blowback in the world around this empire that the United States and its allies have managed to build in the last 3 or 4 decades.
Monotony and poverty were the common lot. But in their abiding faith, they found solace. For religion is not worn like a cloak in the Arab land. It is a vital part of every good Muslim's life. Muhammad united the Arabs, purified their customs, bound them into one people, and filled them with a great faith. 5 times a day, even the humblest Arab stops his work, faces Mecca, and intones the sacred words of the Quran. La ilaha illallah wa Muhammad Rasulullah. There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet.
God!
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! I told you! Oh my God! All these people! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!
Americans are asking, why do they hate us?
Oh my God!
The turning point for me really to write the book was 9/11. After 9/11, shortly afterwards, I flew up to Ground Zero in New York where the World Trade Centers had been. And as I stood there, this pit was still smoldering and you could still smell burning human flesh. And I was greatly moved by this experience. And as I stood there looking into that terrible pit, I realized that I had to take responsibility for what was going on, that while Osama bin Laden may be a mass murderer who should be brought to justice, the fact of the matter is a great deal of the world looks at him as a hero. So it was very clear to me on that day that I stood there looking down into that terrible pit where the World Trade Centers had once stood, that I needed to tell this story, that I needed to come clean on what we've done in the past 50 years since World War II. And I realized that the American people did not understand why someone had done what Osama bin Laden had done, and that we need to understand that. It needs to be very clear to us. It was very frightening to me. I knew that I was going up against strong forces. I mean, I was an economic hitman. I saw jackals at work. So I was very, very concerned about these things. And I was concerned about my physical well-being, too, and that of my family. I don't know how much longer I've got to live. Could be 20 more days, or it could be 20 more years. But it can't be a lot longer than that. In 20 years, I'll be 80, and I may live a little longer. But, you know, as a writer, as a productive member of society, and from that standpoint, I don't have a lot of time left. So I decided I want to devote the rest of my life, however long that may be, to making this a better world for my daughter and her brothers and sisters all over the world. And that's what I must do. And so it doesn't really matter what the repercussions are. I must write this book because that's taking the first step. I was working in Panama with Omar Torrijos as an economic hitman. At the same time with your father, he was very nationalistic and